Hello, ladies. Good afternoon. Welcome to Mentor Monday. We are a live streaming show where we talk with women leaders in cannabis. I'm your host, Kira Reed. Our guest today is Amber Bacca. Amber is the founder of Trax Team Solutions. She's a cannabis compliance, operations, and training expert. As with many women in this industry, she wears many hats. It happens she is also the lead facilitator at Cannabis Trainers, director of cannabis compliance and operations at Novo Partners, founder and co-director at Resilient Futures International, and founder at kinddigs.com. On our show today, we'll be talking about the state of cannabis in Colorado and across the U.S. Amber is one of the smartest consultants we've met, and we are thrilled to have her back on Mentor Monday. As always, ladies, please submit your questions for Amber in the comments. Welcome back, Amber. We're so excited to have you back on the show today.
Thanks, Kyra. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me. And just again, thank you for doing what you do and for making this information attainable and accessible for people in the industry. It's all about making sure we each have each other's backs and making sure we're rolling this out in a responsible and effective way. So thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm so excited to talk with you today. I want to begin, when we spoke the last time, you did not have this list of incredible companies that you are also working on. I can't even believe you have time to do anything but Trax Team Solutions. So tell me about all of these other things that you're doing. Tell us about what Kind Digs is, and then we'll get into some of the really juicy stuff you want to share with us about what's happening in the state of compliance and licensing and everything else going on in the world of cannabis today. So
yeah,
tell us about Kind Digs. Tell us about what you're doing.
I'm exhausted, I will tell you that, but I'm excited about what I do, so that helps keep me going. So I've actually been the lead facilitator for Cannabis Trainers for, I think, about 3 years now. So that one's not new, but I work with Maureen McNamara. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to meet with her. She is just one of the most wonderful people I've ever encountered in life, much less in the cannabis industry. So we focus primarily on responsible vendor training classes for primarily dispensaries, bud tenders, managers. How do we sell cannabis responsibly? How do we make sure that we are disseminating the right information to make sure that our consumers are safe? How do we stay in compliance, follow the rules, and excel when it comes to customer service and consumer services? So that's a big part of what I do. I'm also the founder and CBO of Trax Team Solutions. It's a business that I launched in July of 2017. And it started out as a compliance and operations business primarily. But really what it's turned into is a firm that offers end-to-end innovative business solutions for pre-licensed and licensed cannabis businesses. So because I've been in the industry for about a decade at this point, I have a pretty good idea of what businesses need, what challenges they face, not even just when it comes to launching, but also those day-to-day operational challenges. So what I've done is I've brought together a team of industry experts because I'm pretty good at what I do, but I cannot be an expert in every single little thing. And so what I've done is I've brought together the best of the best to provide solutions to our clients. And I'm really excited about that. It's really just turning into this really beautiful thing. I'm also the founder of kinddigs.com. And so that's just kind of a fun project. I actually Airbnb my house in Denver, and it's a 420 friendly rental space. And so the idea is to showcase 420 friendly Airbnb or short-term rental spaces, but not only to just provide a means for individuals to rent the space, but to actually provide a list of really cool services that aren't necessarily available if you rent from just anyone. So, if you want an in-house CBD massage, we've got people who can do that. If you want, cannabis tours, if you want someone to come in and show you how to make cannabis infused edibles in the kitchen, in the house, we can provide that sort of thing as well. So that's just kind of a fun thing that I'm doing on the side as I travel around the country. It makes sense to rent out my house and share my space with others. And then I'm also one of the co-directors and founders of Resilient Futures International, which is actually a 501c3 international nonprofit that we established in 2010. So that one is not new. The focus on that is international sustainability and helping communities in need find the resources they need and amplify the resources they already have to meet their needs, whether that's economically, environmentally, so on and so forth. And this is something I've not actually announced very widely, but I am hoping to bring cannabis into that space. So we're actually helping communities around the world by means of assisting them in launching and operating resilient cannabis businesses. So that's something that's actually just near and dear to my heart. And it's been my long-term goal since I was about 18 years old.
What are some of the things that you advise people on that's above and beyond that would equate to the goal of a resilient business? Because a resilient business is one that can withstand, ride the tide, right?
Yep.
Scale, grow, and withstand changes in the market. So what are some things that you advise that you in that vertical specifically?
Yeah, so that's exactly what I want to speak about today is how do we build compliance resilient businesses? How do we launch them and set them up and keep them operating in a way that they can actually withstand the challenges that we commonly face within the cannabis industry? So let's just look at the definition of resilience here. Per Oxford Dictionary, the definition of resilience is the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties and toughness, the ability of a substance or object to spring back into shape, elasticity. So again, we face so many challenges within the cannabis industry that other businesses don't necessarily face. And we also face all the same challenges that non-cannabis businesses face. So we have double, triple, quadruple, however many times worth of challenges that we're dealing with here. And so, I've been involved in the industry for about a decade at this point, and I will say that it is definitely the most challenging industry I've ever been involved with. It can be grueling, it can be, incredibly stressful, and it can also be a lot of fun. And I think that the fun comes in when you are actually building in that resilience within your business. You're making sure that your staff is set up to be successful, and then you're having fun with it. You're not constantly putting out fires. When I was the GM of a chain of dispensaries in Denver, that was my biggest complaint was I just felt like I was constantly putting out fires and being reactive as opposed to proactive. So that's what we're going to talk about today. How can we actually set up our businesses so that we are being proactive rather than reactive? So
I've got a question for you on that.
Mm-hmm.
I have a client who is an insurance carrier, and they're about to launch a whole risk management program. He did a bunch of in-field surveys and found that pretty much 100% of the people that he spoke with who have licensed cannabis businesses, so somewhere in the supply chain, mm-hmm. that they wrap into their cost of business theft.
Yes,
they just
absolutely.
accept it. And I thought, why would you even hire people that you think would steal from you?
Well, so I think that's actually a cost of doing business with any kind of valuable product where you have human beings around it touching it, and especially with cannabis, right? We all love cannabis. So I do think that it's important to determine that potential cost and to build it in. But I think it's even more important to set up systems that can help to detect and mitigate the diversion of product. I mean, this is something that as the cannabis industry, as each state and municipality rolls it out, this is a promise that we are making as a responsible industry that we are going to mitigate diversion of theft. It is literally tracking product from seed to sale, keeping it out of the hands of minors, keeping it off of the, out of the black market. These are primary means of boosting public safety according to regulatory agencies. So it's something we have to keep in check. We have to monitor it. We have to have systems in place. We have to understand that as much as we might trust our employees and love them, crimes of opportunity happen. And when you give someone a little bit too much opportunity, and especially if they're not being paid very well, that situation is ripe with the chances that someone might take advantage of that situation. So that is something that just in terms of assisting with compliance, I mean, we definitely help with metric training, inventory management systems. I mean, it's not enough that you just have your store manager performing inventory every other day or once a week or however often you're doing it, that person needs to be double checked as well, right? So whether that's, you've got 3 people in charge of managing inventory, rotating through it to double check the work of the other, or maybe you just, you've got a manager stopping in and performing spot checks randomly throughout the day. Either way, it needs to be accurate, and you need to make sure that all of your inventory is where it's supposed to be, not just because it's a loss of money and income, but because it's a public safety issue, and you can get into big trouble if you're not being careful about that.
I hadn't even thought about it in terms of that one extra step of, well, if the product is now missing, it may be going out into the public.
Absolutely. Which, I mean, I'm not going to lie, I'm pro cannabis. Cannabis for everybody, right? But at the end of the day, we're not going to be able to move the industry forward if we're not doing things responsibly and professionally, and we're demonstrating to regulatory agencies, governments around the world. I mean, just since I spoke with you a year ago, it was literally, I believe, exactly a year ago. Look at how many international markets have opened up since then.
No kidding. No kidding.
It's insane. I can't even believe what's happening these days. But they're not going to open up their markets unless they can see that we can be responsible about it and we're keeping people safe.
Right. And we still have to move towards federal legalization. We still haven't attained that yet.
Correct. And I mean, I don't know if this is the proper venue to speak about this, but, I know that there's some concern within the industry about, big pharma taking over, or, gigantic multinational corporations. Well, when we're acting irresponsibly as an industry, all we're doing is giving them fodder for their own argument, saying these people can't handle this. They don't have the resources, the means, or the expertise, or the desire to be responsible about it. So yeah, we're going to come in and we'll do it right. Well, let's not give them that chance. Let's do things the right way and keep this thing going, as far as I'm concerned.
Agreed. I agree. Yeah. Okay. So tell us how we do that.
Okay. So, as we all know, one of the biggest challenges within the cannabis industry overall, it doesn't matter how you're involved within the industry, is regulatory changes. And so we need to think about this. It's not just, oh, this is such a pain. It's challenging. It's uncomfortable. We need to think about it in terms of, why do we have regulatory changes? What is the purpose of them? Why do they keep changing things? It's really not to throw us off track. It really is because regulatory agencies, primarily, they desire, once again, to promote consumer and employee / public safety. So as they gather more data about the industry, as we become more well established, as there is more data to actually mine through, they are determining that there are different ways that they need to alter the regulations in order to further enhance public safety. So I'll give you an example. Labeling and packaging regulatory changes are what occur most often in Colorado. So primarily, I mean, it's for multiple different reasons.
So 3 years into your legal program, you're still making changes?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We just had I don't even remember how many, like maybe 5 or 6 labeling and packaging changes just last year, actually. But there's a reason for it, right? I mean, so I'll give you an example. So for a long time, edibles labels had to say, might take 2 hours or longer to feel the effects of this product, something along those lines. This is not verbatim. Well, they started identifying that for some individuals with their particular body types and their particular, how well they are affected by cannabis, it could take longer. So they literally last year changed the labeling regulation to say may take up to 4 hours. They had to do that in order to account for the fact that it might take longer for some people, and they have to make sure that individuals are aware of that possibility so they don't overconsume too quickly and overindulge and end up in a situation where they're in the ER calling, poison control, all of these really uncomfortable things that happens when you overconsume. So they had to make that change to broaden the scope of what the warning label was intended for. Another example is we now have on the shelves in Colorado with the Marijuana Enforcement Division, the state regulatory agency in Colorado is calling non-conforming products. So these are basically, it's also called audited products. So examples of this would be suppositories or inhalers, or just any kind of non-traditional product, something that's not combusted and inhaled or used topically or ingested internally. And so basically the Marijuana Enforcement Division and also the Colorado Department of Health, Public Health and Environment is what it is, CDPHE, they have created an entire new category of products called audited product or non-conforming products, where manufacturers of such products actually, they have to jump through a bunch of hoops just to get their product to market. Technically, they have until, I believe, July 1st to meet a lot of the requirements that were put into place on January 1st. But I mean, these product manufacturers have to do so many more things as a manufacturing facility than your typical edibles company needs to. Like, I know in Oregon, I believe, manufacturers of any kind of product are actually required to hold product liability insurance. Well, in Colorado, that's not required except for manufacturers of audited product.
Interesting. Uh-oh, it seems you've been frozen. Okay, I guess we've run into technical difficulties yet again. Sorry about that, ladies. Hopefully Amber will be back with us here in just a moment. Oh, there she is.
Sorry, I'm not quite sure what happened there. I'm in the mountains in Colorado Springs currently, just outside of that. But they had to come up with new rules and regulations to account for these new product types because they never existed before. So of course the regulations are going to change. So those are just some examples of, of why certain regulations can change. In addition, we're also beginning to receive more attention from other types of regulatory agencies that weren't part of the conversation before. So, for example, a decade ago, none of us ever saw OSHA inspectors in our facilities. It just didn't happen at all. These days, we will see them in our facilities. I actually spoke with an OSHA inspector at one point who said, yeah, we just didn't know what to do with you all for the longest time, which is why you didn't see us. But now we're here, and we're here to specifically protect employee safety. And I mean, the fines for OSHA, I'm not sure if you're aware, but they can be outrageous, like hundreds of thousands of dollars, especially if somebody gets hurt or, or even worse, if they get sick, permanently sick, or if they die or lose a limb or something like that. These are very serious things that I think we were not taking very seriously within our industry for a long time. But we have to, not only to keep ourselves out of trouble and avoid those hefty penalties and fines and potential closures, but to protect people as well. I mean, at the end of the day, we're trying to help people, right? We're trying to keep them safe and provide medicine. So
absolutely. And every business that employs people anywhere in this country has to abide by OSHA rules. Anyway, so we have to accept that this is going to become part of business if we want to be legitimized in the mainstream.
Absolutely. And that's what I was saying, as cannabis businesses, we are still required to follow all of the layers of compliance that other businesses need to follow. I mean, HR compliance, it's state by state. I've seen businesses time and time again produce employee handbooks for their employees as this is how you deal with breaks. This is what this is our policy on cigarettes. Well, employee handbooks are actually a legal document. If you're going to create something like that, you need to make sure that you are compliant in what you're saying and what you're telling people is acceptable and what's not. Different states have different rules. And so it's absolutely imperative that we are following. I mean, most of us have really just been focusing on state and municipal compliance at this point because it's a lot, right? But we have to mind all these other layers of compliance. Otherwise, we're not being resilient. And at that point, that's when we're being reactive and not proactive. Mm-hmm. So I think that starts with, whether you are if you're just starting out in the industry as a potential business owner, or if you've already been involved for some time, you have to build out an adequate budget for compliance. It is imperative. And I'm not saying that it has to break the bank. I'm not saying that you have to hire lawyers for, at $300 an hour to help you. There are many, many innovative solutions out there and firms that are willing to go the distance to, to train your management staff on how to understand compliance, on, that there are firms that are willing to help you implement tools and solutions that are going to help you achieve compliance long-term, not just come in and pay us. We're going to tell you what you're doing wrong, and we'll see you next year when you get in trouble. That's not resilience. That is a dependent situation where, again, what I see a lot of is facilities get in trouble, and that's when they get the training for their employees. That's when they hire the compliance expert. That's when they need lawyers to stay in business. Let's change that conversation. Let's tackle this on, from the beginning. And it starts with building an adequate budget. And so that not only includes like identifying what your compliance risks are in your facility, it includes, it starts out with your license application. And again, primarily the purpose of the license application for most regulatory agencies on the state and municipal level is they want to see that your business is going to be compliant with the rules and regulations that they've set forth. They don't want you to just say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. They want to see how you're going to achieve that operationally. How are you going to do it throughout the life of the business? What is your level of commitment to this? What are the resources that you have in order to achieve this? And it's not that it also always has to be monetary, but it has to be realistic and it has to be feasible. What's unfortunate is I do see a lot of businesses, they hire outside experts to help them with those license applications. And sometimes they are way overpaying for that process, which is really unfortunate. It kind of breaks my heart. Or they're just
up to $250,000.
Yeah, that's so much money. So much money. And I'm not saying that firms like that are charging a bunch of money, I'm not saying that they don't have a track record of success. But what I'm also saying is there are more cost-effective ways to do that. And I think that there are individuals within the industry who have been operating within the industry for some time, who have that operational expertise that they can bring into the picture. So, they're writing the license application according to real life scenarios. Like, what does a business actually do when this contingency comes up? Like, how do you work around that? How do you build in systems that are going to help you be resilient? So you do need to make sure you're paying the right people to produce your license application. But I honestly think that the best way to do that is not to just pay the business that is charging the most. That doesn't mean that they're going to be.
It doesn't equate to success for you.
It doesn't. And then in addition to that, there's not necessarily any recourse if you pay them up $250,000 and you don't win the license. I mean, what do you do at that point? Are you going to sue the lawyers that you just paid $250,000 to write the license application? I doubt it. So I think, it's similar to many other things that we deal with within the industry, is just asking for referrals, asking for client referrals. Can I please speak to your former clients? I would like to speak, as a business owner, I want to speak to those former clients and those current clients to see how well the business does, and listening to the client and getting them what they need, being a team player and trying to help them out long-term. Because the other thing I wanted to say is that I see a lot of businesses paying a bunch of money for license applications, and they might win them, but they're not doing anything they said they would do within the application. And that to me is a huge problem. First of all, there's a lack of integrity and professionalism there, because you basically just lied in order to get your foot in the door. You're not doing what you said you were going to do. But that typically means that business is going to be out of compliance as well. Because if they've had experts work through standard operating procedures and build them out on behalf of the business for the license application, if they're not following through with that, what are they doing? I mean, hopefully it's something that's still compliant, but in most cases, it's just kind of left at the door, so to speak.
So if you were to break down the people that you see who are applying for licenses, right? You've got the people who come to the table and they say, we want to be compliant. We want to do this right. We're going to do whatever you say, teach us what to do. Then you've got the people that you were just talking about who aren't living up to what they were saying. I imagine there's a third bucket of people who just don't know.
Yeah.
They're clueless. Do they fall into any of those other buckets? Just kind of clueless, intentionally out integrity and wanting to step up to the plate, or are you seeing something else? Is there a mix of those kinds of things out there?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I do see is that within license applications, businesses have written out their intention on how they're going to manage compliance long term, but they haven't actually sat down to work with a compliance firm to work out that budget and that expectation over the life of the business. So that's exactly what I'm talking about. You need to build out an adequate budget long term, not just for launch. Like, what are you going to do? Like, what resources do you have to devote to this year 1, year 2, year 3? Once you're expanding and you're opening up new businesses, how do you build in compliance systems and implement those systems so that you're maintaining resilience over time? And so very specifically, I personally recommend that when you're dealing with a license application, even at that point and afterwards as well, but you're keeping that application, but how to actually, like, let's say security, right? A security firm that understands compliance can help you in building that license application. They can also install your equipment, making sure that you're compliant along the way. And they can also help you understand the budgetary needs for for maintaining that equipment over time. Okay, let's install your security equipment. That's going to hold you over for 5 years. You're probably going to need a new camp. I mean, whatever it is, let's just be realistic about it and build it into the life of the business. So it's not a whoopsie, we didn't think about this. Now, all of a sudden, we don't have the resources to actually maintain this. We had the license and we were really busy, and now we're not. And now we don't have the funding to actually maintain this long term.
And so what do you think are some of the most common things that people miss?
I honestly think security is a really big one. Security protocols and security compliance is a really big one. Inventory management is another big one. I know that I think that what typically happens, and it's not I'm not trying to make people feel bad, right? Because I've been on the front lines for many, many years here. I think what typically happens is, cannabis businesses are insanely busy. Whether you have a lot of people through the door or not as a dispensary, whether you have a huge grow or not, just dealing with all these layers of compliance, and then also just the market volatility and unpredictability, and the fact that we can't market our businesses like every other business. just banking, you name it, right? It's just a lot to handle, whether you are making a lot of money or not. So I just what I see is businesses, they get into their groove of just, operating, and compliance kind of falls by the wayside just because they're so busy dealing with everything else. But again, what I'm saying is it's all about putting those systems in place. So you've got a net of support. You've got that resilience built in, layered throughout your business, so that, it's not in the back of your mind. It's everything you do every day.
It surprises me that when we were doing our dispensary application, we had a full-time compliance individual put into the budget because we anticipated that could very well happen. And without somebody whose main job full-time was to ensure that compliance was happening at every turn, we would lose control of it very easily. It just kind of is startling to me that so many people don't take that piece of it beyond seriously. That will get you shut down immediately, and fines that you have to pay.
Absolutely. In all honesty though, how many people can you hire now that we have this many businesses? How many people can you hire that are actually going to be able to manage that, that they're going to be able to manage it on their own? Please do that by all means. But even those individuals are going to need support. It is so much to keep up with. I can barely keep up with 3 different states' regulations, much less OSHA and all these, like our local Department of Agriculture isn't the same as a Department of Agriculture in another state. I mean, it's just so much to keep up with. So, I mean, I'm a big fan of integrating. Yes, have your point person on the team who is managing these things, but provide them with some resources so that they can manage it, because you can't do it all yourself. It's just too much, honestly. I mean, it's, especially if you have facilities in different jurisdictions and in different states, that would be really challenging. And with regard to your question, something that I'm personally really concerned about is sanitation and waste disposal. Yeah, like I think that, I don't know how to put this. I don't want to be mean. So I do a lot of facility audits, a lot of compliance audits, and I've just seen some really disturbing things over the years. And it's not that people are trying to cut corners and be irresponsible, but it's like, I feel like there's a little bit of that old mindset, right? Like, oh, it's cannabis. Like, we've been growing this in our basement for however many years, and blah, 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 whatever. But like, at the end of the day, it's a consumable product. We need to be operating our facilities as if we are running restaurants, even at the dispensary level. People need to sanitize surfaces, door handles. They need to wash their hands regularly, especially if they're contaminated. They need to make sure. One of the more disturbing things that I've seen, actually, and something that breaks my heart, is like people putting chemicals in the landfill, in the dumpster. Like, I've actually met with businesses that pour bleach on their cannabis waste so that people won't consume it. And I'm like, well, that literally goes right in the landfill. I mean, it's a public safety hazard. It's also a huge liability for the business, because if someone does get in there and consumes it because they don't know there's bleach on it, they could actually turn around and sue that business at that point for poisoning them. So, I mean, yeah, that's another really big thing. And I also just think that, having and maintaining transparent business records is a huge deal, right? I mean, we're not trying to hide anything. We should want to be transparent at this point so that we can move forward. And honestly, that's going to boost the valuation of your business anyway. If someone wants to invest or buy you out, like, they want to see the history of the business itself. It's only going to help you out and help you stay out of trouble. Because if you're doing things the right way, there's no reason to hide anything, right?
Absolutely. So we're at the halfway mark, and we have a question. Actually, I think it's a bit of a comment. It's from Karen Fromel. I hope I pronounced that correctly, Karen. Please put a link to the nonprofit. I work in nonprofit and would love to learn more about that one, especially if you're looking to add cannabis to it. So Karen, we will get that link from Amber at the end of the show, and we will post that in there for you. Thanks so much for your question. Okay, back to compliance. When you were talking about sanitation, it reminded me of the type S license that we have here, where multiple manufacturers can share a facility. Mm-hmm. But the risk is, if one of them doesn't sanitize, you pick something up in your product, everyone under that license is subject to the lawsuit if the lawsuit comes forward. So it's really, really risky to not have all of that compliance, including sanitation, covered 100%. It's such a priority in business. What are some things that women can do is there like an audit checklist? Is there something that they can run through to say, okay, maybe it's gotten out of control in my business. How do I rein it back in? How do I start to think about this so that I can gain some more control and not get busted?
Yeah, absolutely. And so this is my primary, this is where I spend most of my energy right now, is trying to develop innovative and cost-effective solutions so that businesses can get a handle on this and can maintain control in a way that's actually manageable. So I do think that businesses, no matter where you are, you should be hiring third-party auditors regularly. I know some of them are more expensive than others, but I will tell you, there is nothing better than having an outside set of eyes, an unbiased set of eyes fresh eyes that aren't living and working in your facility. Sorry, nobody lives in their facility, hopefully. But, people who aren't in there every single day. Because when you look at the same thing over and over again, you kind of start to glaze over, so to speak.
For the trees.
Exactly. And so there's nothing better than getting an unbiased, highly trained individual in there who can help you with that. But beyond that, I mean, I don't think you need to pay, you don't need to pay $5,000 to get that done. Like myself and some of the individuals that are part of our coalition with Trax Team Solutions, we do our best to make it as affordable as possible, definitely below $1,000. And what's key with this is you don't just want someone to come in and tell you what you're doing wrong. You need someone to tell you how to rectify those issues, right? Because if you know what's wrong and you don't know how to fix it, how are you going to follow up on it and make sure that you're compliant, not just immediately, but long-term as well? If you don't understand why this rule is in place and how to actually meet that requirement operationally, you're at a disadvantage when it comes to keeping up on with these things. Sorry, were you going to say something?
I was just going to ask you for some horror stories.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I don't know. I think I've brought up a few of them already. Like the health and sanitation thing is really, that's where I get the most disturbed. I will say that even I've seen people not checking IDs still, even though it is like literally, like I will come in as an auditor and they won't even check my ID. And I'm like, really? Like this is literally within the first 3 seconds of our interaction. I'm like, come on. Like, so that's one thing. People not sanitizing their utensils, like in their jars, and not sanitizing between batches. I mean, granted, yeah, it's cannabis, but like people have germs. I mean, they just do. And I tend to be a little bit more of a germaphobe than most people, but like the risk if you don't sanitize in between batches is that, if you're not regularly tracking that, if you're not regularly doing it and tracking it to document when you're doing it, someone could come in and say, hey, I got sick because of something that happened within your facility. But then as a business, you have to look back and be like, when is the last time that we sanitized? Bobby, did you sanitize last week? Susie, when's it? Who was in charge? Who's been in charge? And it doesn't have to be, it can be so simple. Just have a sanitation checklist. That's it. Just we sanitize twice a day. I did this today. Here are my initials. I mean, it doesn't have to be insanely difficult. It just needs to be done and tracked.
How long do you think it will be before the food industry's standards start to be applied here?
Yeah, we're actually already seeing some of this with good manufacturing practices. So I actually, about 6 months ago, recognizing this and recognizing that, I mean, not only is it important that we stay up to speed with this so that we can stay compliant and not get in trouble, but again, if we start to make people sick with cannabis, like that's a whole bag of we don't want that at all, right? That has so many repercussions for the entire industry we should absolutely avoid it. But
it almost seems like it would be worse if they got sick, not because of the cannabis, but because of the food product in there that then would reflect on the bad practices of the industry as a whole and the lack of food safety oversight.
Absolutely. I mean, any which way you swing it, all the public's going to see is cannabis, somebody got sick. End of story. Right? So we actually have someone as part of our coalition whose focus is specifically on good manufacturing practices. So she can help run an audit for you, within your business, to identify those areas where you need to tighten up. There are also, in Colorado, edibles manufacturers are actually required all of the staff members are required to participate in Serve Safe, which is just basic food safety. That's something that Cannabis Trainers also offers, in addition to the responsible vending courses. And so that's not a checklist or a punch list per se, but like even as a GM of a chain of dispensaries, I took that training because I want to know. And it turned out to be incredibly valuable because at one point we had the health department come in and I actually understood what she was trying to look for, right? Is our water temperature correct and at a safe temperature? Is our refrigerator, does that get cold enough? Are we always refrigerating edible food products that say on the label must be refrigerated? If it says on the label it has to be refrigerated, it doesn't mean it has to be cold when you sell it. It means it has to be refrigerated the whole time. So those are some things that you can do. So there are a lot of us that actually perform facility audits. There are different types of software out there that are available to you. That's something that I'm working on currently. I just released the Colorado version of facility audit software, but it's really what I'm calling a hybrid audit software, because in addition to going in and being able to identify what you need to rectify within your facility, I've built it into the back end to where individuals can actually request a different audit package, where if they go, oh, we missed a lot of these questions, or this is an area where we are concerned because we are clearly falling short, or I don't understand what this meant. Like, I need some additional guidance. I've actually built it into the back of the software to where individuals can sign up for a different package and receive assistance and consultation via the software, which includes operational instructions on how to rectify the specific issue, as well as the regulation itself. So I'm trying really hard to because I've operated these businesses for years, it's not enough. I feel like we can go further, and we can provide solutions that are actually helpful long-term, and that build resilience. Like, I want to help facilities understand why they need to do what they need to do and how they need to do it. Not just, this is a pain, this hurts my brain, and it's expensive, this sucks. Like, we can do better than that.
Cannabis is not the gold mine everybody thought it was going to be. And it's okay. It's okay because it raises the barrier to entry, which means people who are taking it seriously will be the ones who will win in the end. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we'll all be corporations. I think the more that we can get really good business owners doing the right thing, we will be able to keep more of the industry in our hands. So it's a bigger play here than just your individual business. It's, can we prove as an industry we can hold on to our businesses because we can step up to the plate and we can learn about how we are compliant and taking those extra steps. And I've got a client called Trace Trust, and they're a third-party verification. And right now, you are not required to have any kind of testing or verification beyond your flower. Mm-hmm. And so we don't know if somebody says, we use chocolate in this, or we use honey in this. We don't know where it came from. We don't even know if they are actually using those ingredients. There's no verification. So being a responsible business that says, okay, I understand that just because the industry doesn't require it right now, I can take those steps and I can look down the path and say, this is coming. And if I get on now and I get verified and somebody else making sure that what I say on my posting is accurate, it's winning trust of your audience, but it's also making it better for the industry as a whole when you do that. So are you working with any third-party verification? Are you guiding your clients to do that? Do you have questions about that very often?
I don't get questions about it very often. I will say that we have several coalition members that are very interested in participating in something like that and helping to promote it, and I am as well. I think that, for me, it's been challenging to figure out, how do I explain this? I've seen some infighting and lack of support from the industry for certain entities that are providing certification, various types of certification, because I don't know. I feel like within the cannabis industry, we always have a certain layer of distrust, right? I mean, I think
Sure.
it's because we deal with cannabis, and a lot of us have been like, even myself, I used to sell cannabis when I was in high school. Like, there's always that, how am I going to get in trouble here? And the man. But I think at this point, a lot of that distrust has been born out of business owners being taken advantage of by consultants, by lawyers, by various entities that don't necessarily, like, they're looking for that payoff and that paycheck, but they're not necessarily aiding these businesses in being resilient long term or maintain their certification. I will say that, I'm still looking at different types of certification and verification, and I'm always open to speaking with entities that are offering that, because I do think that it is as long as that process is transparent and it makes sense, and that there's no barrier to entry in terms of, like, if it's cost prohibitive for a business to get that certification, unless you're a gigantic corporation, it doesn't really do much good anyway. So I think as long as it's transparent and fairly priced and it makes sense, and you've got, industry backing from not just experts who have been experts for the past 6 months, but like people who have been involved for some time and actually understand how these things work, I'm all for it. And I would love if anybody, has references for me to look up, I would love to look into that.
I will introduce you to Trax Trust.
Awesome.
The reason I started working with them, they're two women who have a very deep background in food safety and certification. So that's the industry they come from. And I think one thing that people make a lot of mistakes on when they're hiring consultants is they just look at their cannabis industry experience as opposed to what were they doing professionally beforehand. Mm-hmm. Because if you're just somebody who's been in the cannabis industry for a long time, that isn't really enough qualification to necessarily take you down that path if you don't couple that with some kind of traditional business experience as well.
I totally agree. I will say that, like, even in my bio, it doesn't speak much about what I was doing before the cannabis industry, but I was actually a financial aid advisor for the University of Denver. And so that was, yes, but that was my role, was making sure that we were compliant with, lending practices and grants and so on and so forth as an educational establishment. So
you have you have a background in understanding working with the federal government, following regulations, how you do that to the letter, where you don't cut. I mean, it's a really important training to have to bring to the industry. And I really definitely recommend that before you hire anyone, ladies, that you get a sense of what their professional training is as well. Because if you don't have that structure, when you're trying to teach people something, you don't understand process, you don't understand what it's actually like and bureaucracy, you're not going to really be doing your clients much good.
Agreed. Yeah, absolutely agreed. And I think, reputation, it means a lot in this industry as well. Yes. Is this individual surrounded by other reputable individuals who are working their asses off, excuse my language, to promote the industry and help it move forward in a healthy way? Something that I'm really excited about is environmental sustainability within the cannabis industry. And it's something that I've always, obviously, I have an international sustainable nonprofit, but like there's some new movements within the industry right now. Like, how do we come out with compliant packaging solutions that are, biodegradable and recyclable, but also manufactured with, sustainable products, hemp, algae, these sorts of things. And so, I mean, I see so much opportunity within the industry, and so many different ways that we can do this the right way. And I think I just really hope that they're looking at it from a more holistic perspective. And it's not just about your business. Okay. It's about the earth, the planet as a whole. I just got chills. It's what I truly believe. And I think we all have a responsibility to do this the right way. Lots of opportunity out there to do that. I will also say that I do think that employee training And it's not just, okay, we trained our employees when we hired them. It needs to be ongoing, right? Regulations change over time, situations change, products change. You have to be providing adequate employee training to your staff members. And it's not just so you stay out of trouble, because that is incredibly important, but it's a competitive edge as well. You know, as a consumer, I don't want to deal with someone selling me cannabis or growing my cannabis who doesn't understand the larger picture, who doesn't understand health and sanitation and safety and the medicine itself. I mean, this could very well be your competitive edge against, I mean, let's face it, we have so many more licenses now than we did a year ago even. So it's time that we stand out. And I think there's a real opportunity to do that by doing the right thing.
So that's an interesting point that you make, a competitive edge. And it's something that in any other industry, you open your front door and that is first and foremost in your mind. How am I going to be different? In California, I rarely see anybody caring about that. They think they are going to open their doors. They don't have to put any care into their facility so that a client, when they walk in, a customer, when they walk in, feels welcomed, feels calm, doesn't feel like they're still walking into a black market facility, training their employees. I mean, the music they have playing overhead, the attention that the bud tenders give. It's just all of these little things that they don't care. And one after another, I just did a big dispensary tour in my area. I think we went to about 25 dispensaries. I can't tell you one that impressed me, not one, because nobody cared about the competitive edge.
Mm-hmm. And I will also say that I've seen a lot of facilities put so much money and resources behind creating a beautiful facility, but they're not paying attention to the actual consumer experience or the employee experience. I mean, this is something that the Trax Team Solution is also working towards, is how do we support employee wellness within the industry? We've got a woman who specifically, she teaches and trains on mindfulness practice and in individuals who have been through trauma. But not only that, but as bud tenders, a lot of our when we're interfacing with consumers, some of these people have dealt with trauma, whether it's by means of them being sick or they have PTSD. So how do we create that space for our employees where they're feeling supported and they understand the backbone of wellness? Because that's what we're doing with cannabis. So why are we not taking care of our employees? Why are we, not acting with integrity? Why are we not creating safe spaces for individuals to work and purchase cannabis? Why are we playing? I mean, listen, I'm into all kinds of things and different kinds of music, but I used to always tell my bud tenders, like I'd walk into the store and they'd be bumping rap music. And I'm like, if grandma is not comfortable, turn it off. I know you want this to be fun. I know you're at work. I know you're here all day, but this isn't about you. This is about our consumers and creating safe spaces.
Basic marketing and consumer stimulation, these things have worked in other industries. Mm-hmm. So it's, what color is on the walls? What does your place smell like? The music playing, these all contribute to people buying things. These all contribute to how long they stay in your store and browse and whether they come back, even though these are very kind of below our consciousness triggers. They're very effective when you take the time to think them through. What is the flow of people coming in through the front door? What is the first thing that is said to them when they come to the front door? How long until they're acknowledged when they've been here? All of these steps along the way contribute to your bottom line. So I'm curious, in your experience, why do you think that these, because they don't have business background, they don't understand this, they don't care, they think they're just going to make money hand over fist? What seems to be the big disconnect?
I think it's the belief that you're going to be rich. If you own and operate a licensed cannabis business, then all your worries are over and you're going to be rich. And I just don't think that it matches reality. I mean, I will tell you that, especially in Colorado, when recreational came online in January 2014, we saw 719 people that first day. And then we had a line out the door for 3 months after that. And you're dang straight we made a lot of money, right? But that's not what happened when these other facilities opened up. And I think I think everybody's rushing to be first in their market and to throw their doors open. And then it's this frenzy. And then it kind of fizzles out and they're grasping at straws going, okay, now what can we do? How do we get those consumers back? How do we stand out against the rest? We do need to have good product. Corporate responsibility. That's another thing that I'm really trying to bring into the forefront of the industry is, it's not just about you making money, but it's also about how you're benefiting the communities around you. But even that is another way that you can have a competitive edge. Like, why can't we sell the best cannabis in the world, the best quality product, help the environment, help our local communities? Like, as a consumer, that is absolutely the product that I would want to purchase. And those are the businesses I would love to give my money to. So why aren't there more of them? I don't really know, except I feel like there is a disconnect between how much money businesses think they're going to make and how much when they realize how much it costs to operate these businesses, not just in terms of dollars, but also just sweat equity as well. I think it doesn't quite match reality. And this is what I'm talking about. You have to have a good understanding of what to expect before you even get involved. Build out that budget for 5 years. This is just like any other business, but more complex. So do the right thing, build in resilience, set up systems within your business so that you can be resilient and deal with these challenges as they come up, because the only thing we know about the industry and anything in life is that everything changes. So resilience.
So expect that it will change here.
Absolutely.
So just to end off on what you were saying, Flowcana is a company that I have a tremendous amount of respect for. They hired a brilliant woman. They hired Amanda Ryman, and her job is community. She goes out into the community and she makes sure that the relationship that they have with their town, with the police department, with the schools, with other businesses is good and strong and trusting. And it has done wonders for that brand. I mean, they have an incredible reputation, one of the few that have a really, really solid reputation. And they've got the support of their community. And I think that's one thing that we tend to forget as cannabis businesses. We are tied to each other. And if you are not out there advocating in your city council, if you're not advocating with your sheriff's department, your police department, they could turn on you. New people can be elected and they could decide they don't want you and you're out and they don't care. So it is an ongoing relationship that you have to maintain. It's another piece of being a cannabis business for every business in your community that is licensed. So we got to go on tour with this one, because this is like,
let's do it.
It is the most critical piece that is, it's not required. It is not required that you get out there and you participate in your community. But if you don't, it is a major vulnerability. And once you're open and you've created not goodwill, or you've appeared that you don't care about the community, it's really hard to undo that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There are a lot of communities and a lot of populations out there that have already been taken advantage of in various ways. And they're sick of it, right? I would be too. I mean, I didn't grow up with a silver spoon by any means, but there's just so much more we could be doing. And we need to walk the walk. And that means on every level, when it comes to our employees, our consumers, and the local community, and the environment and the world at large. We have such a huge opportunity, but a huge responsibility at the same time. So let's make some money, let's have some fun, but let's do it the right way, I think.
Yeah. Woo! Thank you, Amber. All right. Thank you, Amber. Thank you, ladies, for joining us today. If you're watching this and you aren't currently a member of Women Empowered in Cannabis, please find us on Facebook and join our growing community of women working in cannabis. We're at about 5,000 members now, ladies, so we're growing rapidly. Until next time, ladies, have a wonderful and productive week, and we will see you on our next Mentor Monday. Bye-bye.
Take care.